So I wanted to share something with you that I found online when I was getting ready for this talk. It's a website that I'll tell you about in a second. Understanding requires exploration. Choice is the nature of non-locality and of us. Growth is a constant. Being, look within and recreate yourself. We vibrate, we dream, we are reborn. Today, science tells us that the essence of nature is knowledge. You and I are pilgrims of the cosmos. And the reason I share that with you is because it's from a website called the New Age BS Generator. There's a website where you just hit a button and it puts a whole lot of buzzwords together. It's not BS, they use the other word, but I'm not going to do that. And I love that because I think it's possible to take ourselves too seriously. I love that because it's my job, my calling to talk about this stuff. And it's really important that I do a good job at it, right? And I'm aware that there's a kind of a market, let's say, for the jargon. It's really easy to take some very basic ideas and use a lot of important sounding words and make it just confusing enough to write a book about. You know, you can make a good living doing that if you want. And so I always want to go the other way. I'm kind of an extreme person, and so I want to go the other end of the spectrum. So I was thinking about that, getting ready to talk to you today. And I thought, okay, well, what if I were at the other end of the spectrum? How can I simplify this all the way down? Because what I know is if you cannot explain it without using jargon and special words, then you don't understand it. And my favorite truth book, a book called Lessons in Truth, I talk about it all the time, the author says, truth is simple. A child can understand it. And if you can't explain it that way, you don't understand it. So, okay, I want to make sure I understand it. So how can I get as simple as I can about this? So the thought experiment I had was, okay, well, what if I was able to come up with a one-word prayer? Because prayer is the action of spirituality, right? So what would be a one-word prayer for that action? And I started out with a word like spirit. I thought, well, that kind of covers everything because it's all spirit, right? That sounds pretty good. But it doesn't really say a lot because lots of people have lots of different ideas about what that means. So no, that's not it. I thought, well, of course, love. Love is the word. I mean, we talk about that. The gospel in one word is love. There's a song about that. It's all love, right? Man, just Bob Marley said so. One love. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Lots of people have lots of different ideas about love, and some of them are kind of yucky, to use a technical term. So that's not it either. As much as I love the word love, that's not either. What is my one-word prayer? Try to make it personal. And I invite you to think about what your one-word prayer is. There's no wrong answers here. But I will tell you for sure that my one-word prayer is yes. That's the word. Yes. I think that does it. At least does it for me. Because when I think about every time something good happened, when I realized that I was in the zone spiritually speaking, when it was me and God happening, when things were clicking, big or small, the thing that came from my heart was yes. Yes. It worked. The thing happened. I remembered who I was. I showed up in integrity and with intentionality. Yes. That is my one-word prayer. And I'll double down on that because you and I both know that what you say yes to in your life, you get more of. That's prayer. Yes is my one-word prayer. I believe that yes is the language of miracles. It's also something that we come knowing how to do. So there's a side benefit. Babies know all about yes and connection and being one with something, right? It's only later when we become cool, sophisticated adults that we start to say no to a lot of things. Because it involves ego and power and stuff like that. No is that pushing away feeling. It's only when we start to become boring that we say no. You know? Yes is the language of inclusion. It's the language of miracles. And it's also the language of the universe. I mean, when you think about the way that things like evolution works, it has to do with inclusion and combination and affirmation and recombination. Things are saying yes to one another, and that's how we grow, cells and so on, and organisms and so on, stuff that we've talked about before. It's all yes, and yes, and yes. Yes is the one-word prayer. And the reason that yes works so well is because there's a handshake that happens. When I say yes, the idea is that something in me recognizes that there's something outside that I'm connected with. Yes. It's inclusion. It's recombination, like I said. Yes is the thing that gets me out of the echo chamber of my own ego and my own stuff. Yes says there's something more than just what I got going on between my ears. Yes says, bring it in. And that's why it's good. If you want things to work in your life, learn the language of yes. And I'll put that another way. One of the big problems that I see with spiritual experience, one of the problems that I see with religion, and it's such a common problem that some people think that that's all there is to religion. It's a cheap shot, and it's kind of ignorant, but it's understandable because it happens a lot. Some people think that all religion is about is no. Right? I mean, think about how many religions are based on the idea that, you know what, I looked around and I'm getting out of here. No. I'm going to get to heaven. I'm going to get to nirvana. I'm going to get to California. I'm going to get somewhere that ain't here. So many religious practices are based around that idea. That's a big no. One, you can understand the problem with that, right? Because if I'm not here, how am I ever going to get there, wherever there happens to be? And more than that, if I don't care about here, because there's no room for care in escape. There's no room for care in escape. And if all I'm trying to do is leave, well, I don't care if I mess things up. I don't care if I break relationships, screw up the environment, and everything in between, right? Because I'm out of here. I got my walking papers. I have spiritual freshmanitis, or senioritis, rather. Freshmanitis is a different problem. You know what I mean? The concept of escape is the opposite of spirituality because it means I ain't here. And like I said, it's common. And it leads to another kind of no that we see a lot in religion, and that is the concept of sin. There's this idea that, you know what, you're no good, you were made that way, you were starting out broken. There's a lot of religious practices that begin with your wrongness. You're no good, and so, deal with it. I guess come back. But I think the people in this room recognize that there's a logical flaw there. Because if I'm fundamentally broken, there is no fixing me. You take your car into the mechanic, and there's a place and a time when the mechanic goes, you know what, this is not just an oil change. This is total. Can't fix this. Well, if I'm fundamentally sinful, if I'm fundamentally broken, then what's even the point? Never mind the fact that what does it say about my Creator? You can't have perfect God, perfect love, perfect spirit, and also flawed workmanship. It don't add up. Like I said, that's a big no. There's a no going out, and there's a no coming in. And so a lot of people go, I don't get it. I'm just going to skip church and go right to brunch. I understand that. Baby, need bathwater, though, Because there's more to talk about and there's more to say. But I want to be really gentle here because I recognize that sometimes no is a trauma response. Sometimes somebody tells us that we're no good or that we're sinful or something like that, and we feel bad and it hurts. And so I've done this. Maybe you have too, where it's like, you know what, I'm just going to shield myself with no. I'm not doing it. I'm not going there. I'm not looking at it. I'm not going to talk about it. No. No is a trauma response. And it's an understandable one because I want to protect myself. I get it. It's like emotional scar tissue. Understandable. But you and I both know that there is a difference between scarring up and healing. Sometimes things happen that stink. Pardon my French. Sometimes things happen and people do mean, toxic things. I get it. We are all here to heal. I've done dumb, mean, toxic things too, and I'm sorry about it, We've experienced it. We've been on both sides of it, perhaps. Don't let those things make you into a no person. Refuse. Like I said, it is an understandable response, but it is not the same thing as healing. If the whole language of the universe, if the whole language of miracles, if the whole language of growth is yes, then shutting yourself off from that is not going to get you where you want to go. The question that I have for you, if I were to give you homework, this would be part of the homework, is, are you a yes person or are you a no person? Decide for yourself. Work on your yes. It's easy to be cool and to say no to things, but like I said, it shuts you off from your good. Work on the idea that, you know what, no matter what happens, no matter if I look silly, no matter if I get my heart broken, I'm going to be a yes person. I'm going to say yes to things because I know that that's how miracles work. I know that that's how healing works. Healing is a language of yes. I'm going to work on having my default response be yes. Even if I look silly doing it. Because I'd rather be a fool who heals than somebody cool who doesn't. Let's work on being yes people, because that's how miracles work. When you think about the times that things have worked for you in your life, I would bet money that there was a yes involved in that. Somewhere along the line, you said yes to something and something worked out for you. Because you know what? None of this happens against your will. It just doesn't, right? And that invites something else that there's probably another generator website about, and that is manifestation. So many times people come to church with the idea that I want to make stuff. I got to move stuff around. I got to get stuff happening. I got to attract me some good or a new car or a thing. I want to make things. I'm going to manifest stuff. People talk about that. And the funny thing is, I don't know if you've experienced it, but I have definitely experienced this. The harder that I work on manifestation, the less well it works. Watching television with me, silly rabbit, segues are for kids. Watching television with me is a terrible experience. Because we get about 5 minutes in, and I say to my poor wife, what else were they in? That actor, what else were they? Were they the guy from The Thing that we saw last week? Who are they? And I've got my phone, and I can look on Wikipedia or IMDb or whatever and look it up, but I don't want to do that. And 9 times out of 10, Jenny knows what they've been in, and she won't tell me because she wants me to be quiet. Just think about it. It'll come to you. And it's incessant. And the more I try to think of what they were, was it that one show? Was it Morse? They were in Morse? Because we're watching All Creatures Great and Small. And I think that, no, that's not it. The harder I try, the less well it works. But after I forget and I start enjoying the show, I remember. They were in that episode of Endeavor where the guy does the thing with the thing. Manifestation is like that. Everything is like that. It's like remembering somebody's name. It's like wondering where the car keys are, and you tear the house apart looking for them, and then you forget, and there they are. It's like that. Everything is like everything, right? And the reason that manifestation works less well the harder you work on it is because it works. Here's what I mean by that. You get more of what you say yes to, right? You experience what you say yes to. You get what you agree with, right? The statement you make is the experience that you get. Well, so what is the statement that I'm making if I'm trying to make something happen? Okay, universe, I want this all to change, and I want my better idea about how it's going to work to show up. It ain't here yet. I need it to show up. I got to attract it to myself. I got to make it show up. Well, my statement is, it ain't good here. And so I will surely get more of, it ain't good here. There is distance implied in manifestation, and it's not the distance that we want. That's why it doesn't work as well the harder we concentrate on it. Put another way, sometimes when I'm trying to make something happen, what I'm really saying is, okay, God, I have a better idea. I get it, you got your stuff, but let me tell you how this is going to work. Let me tell you how this is all supposed to be, because I'm going to improve on this. Really? You're going to improve on the way it sounds when a baby laughs? Are you going to improve on the Grand Canyon? Are you going to improve on the way it feels when you fall in love? You got a better idea about that? You can improve on Casablanca? Come on now. There are perfect things. Here's what I'm trying to say. Spirituality is not about making things happen. It's about letting things happen and agreeing with them. The world is already a really good place. Perfection is inherent. I don't have to make it show up, and the harder I try to make it show up, the less well it works. That's how this works. We talk a lot about making a world that works for everybody. It sounds great. You know what? The world works great for everybody if we just get out of the way. Pollution isn't natural. People do it. Quit doing it, for example. There's lots and lots of examples. Get out of the way. Spirituality is the science of getting out of God's way. It's about saying yes to something. As it turns out, our job is not makers of things. Our job is like being a caretaker. Like I said, in escape, there's no room for care. So let's learn how to care, because in doing so, we will learn how to show up. Let's learn how to show up. Our job as spiritual beings is not to manifest everything, because things are good as they are. Our job is to allow. Our job is to agree. Our job is to say yes, because the language of yes is, I see it, I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to agree with it. So look around at your life. There are things to see and with which to agree. And people say, that's great, but I got stuff I want to move around. I got stuff I want to have change in my life, and I understand that. The natural question is, then what do I do or not do so that things will move around? And I'm glad you've asked that, because that's the next thing I want to talk about. Think about how things move in the world. The world moves for the real thing. I'm going to say that again because it's really important, and I'll explain it in a moment. The world moves for the real thing. The world moves for true love, for example. The world moves for truth and beauty and art, passion. The world moves for the real thing. Think about the heroes that you've had. They are the real thing in some field or another. Gandhi, the real thing. Van Gogh, the real thing. John Coltrane, Meryl Streep, for crying out loud. Come on. The world moves for the real thing, and the world moves for people who can embody the real thing in some place in their lives. So you want things to work for you? Find your real thing. There is something in you. There is a place where your heart touches infinity. Big or small, doesn't matter. It's all good. Find that thing for you and commit to it. Yes, and it, as they say in improv. Do the thing where I see it and I agree with it, because that's what yes does. That's how miracles work. What's your real thing? That's your homework. Think about it. Find it. Be passionate about it. Say yes to it. And there are certainly people, when I say stuff like that, who say, that's great, but I'm afraid. It sounds great. I want to be a hero. I want to be Meryl Streep. I mean, who doesn't? But I'm afraid I can't be a hero like that. Well, let me tell you something. Heroes aren't free from fear. Fear is always a thing to face, because we've always got more growing to do. You don't ever want to be done, do you? That's boring. You're always going to be at the horizon, at the boundary, outside your comfort zone, looking at something new to face and to deal with and to overcome and to grow through. That's awesome. That's the hero's journey, and it's your journey and mine. I'm not asking you to be free from fear. I'm asking you to find a yes that is bigger than your fear. Find something you can say yes to that is bigger than whatever it is that you're afraid of, and you'll be okay. You will have found your purpose. And it will change. It will grow. You will change. You will grow. Just find something good to say yes to, and everything changes. Think about everything that began with a yes. As you know, I'm about to become a grandpa. Looking forward to that. Yeah, it's awesome. I'm excited. The word is stoked, in fact. I'm ready. But I think about the fact that in our youth group at our Unity Church, when I was a teenager, there was this girl who walked in, got my phone number, and I thought, there's no way I'm going out with her, because surely she's dating like the captain of the swim team or whatever. I'm not calling her. But I said yes. married almost 30 years, and there's grandkids on the way. That's a small example. It's important to me. But think about everything that starts with a yes. Think about the generations upon generations, the time upon time, the movement upon movement, the love upon love, the miracles upon miracles that just begin with the simplest little moment of connection and affirmation. Your yes is not a small thing. It is everything. Find your real thing. Say yes to it, and the mountains will move, and it will work, and the healing will happen, and you will find freedom. Because after all, freedom